James Vasquez. Do you know who I'm talking about, Aaron?
I don't know.
Okay, there's this guy, James Vasquez, who is like a home improvement contractor from Connecticut or Massachusetts or something. He went to Ukraine and started posting all these videos of himself and guys in Ukrainian uniforms blowing up Russian tanks, or they would be standing by blown up tanks in the Kiev Oblast. And then he was raising tons of money back home from like suburban housewives who thought he was this great hero, and saying that he was a U.S. military veteran. The New York Times has finally exposed him and Malcolm Nance for running just a sham operation, not actually doing any real fighting. Vasquez completely lied about his military background. He's deleted his Twitter account, which had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. He's gone dark. He's disappeared. Malcolm Nance, I don't know what he has to say about any of this, but Malcolm Nance is now involved in a legal dispute with other people involved in the International Brigade. Nance is accused people who've criticized him of being Russian assets, and said he was launching a counterintelligence investigation into them. And he's teamed up with another guy who lied about his military service to try to take control of the International Brigade. And of course, Nance went to Ukraine claiming that he was fighting on the front lines. He was on Bill Maher, actually, claiming he was on the front lines. I might as well pull up my little thread I did about him. But he wasn't anywhere near the front lines. He was in what he called a safe house to do media operations. And this was known all along.
Wasn't there some headline about Nance, like Malcolm Nance is done talking?
Yeah,
right.
That was his own statement. You know?
That was yeah, but of course, all he did was go to Ukraine and talk because he wasn't doing any actual fighting.
We might as well do like a real quick segment since we got on this topic.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, the New York Times has finally exposed these characters. Malcolm Nance, a former Navy cryptologist and MSNBC commentator, arrived in Ukraine last year and made a plan to bring order and discipline to the International Legion, which Americans have gone to fight in. Instead, he became enmeshed in the chaos.
Yeah, right.
He's involved in a messy, distracting power struggle that plays out on Twitter, where he taunted one former ally as fat. Malcolm Nance is not exactly a model of physical fitness, by the way, and an associate of a verified con artist. He accused a pro-Ukraine fundraising group of fraud, providing no evidence. I'm sure he's probably right there. Then he wrote a counterintelligence report trying to get them fired. He accused one Legion official of fraudulently trying to buy a house on an Australian reality show with money she didn't have. He called her a potential Russian spy. He also said that about Glenn Greenwald. She denied the accusations and reported her to Ukrainian counterintelligence. He's left Ukraine, but he's fundraising with this guy, Ben Lackey, who said that he was a Marine, but in fact is even lying about the fact that he's an assistant manager at Longhorn Steakhouse. He worked as a server, not an assistant manager, according to Longhorn Steakhouse, and the Pentagon said he had no military experience. So this is Nance's boy. Now here's Nance on Bill Maher.
And so you're on the front lines?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're shooting
Lie.
at the bad guys?
Yeah. And there's a lot more than just shooting at the bad guys. First off, you're right. I was age 60 when I passed the commando course that I went through. And
Just straight up lying on national TV.
What's even funnier is that I knew that to get past artillery, I had to beat that 36-year-old former Marine that was with me. But you know, when you go there, there are a lot of.
I think he might be referring to Ben Lackey right there, calling him a former Marine when he's a server at Longhorn Steakhouse who's lying about being an assistant manager.
Of different components to your job. My first job was doing intelligence work. Then my second job was an infantry intelligence officer on the front line. And then my third job was a special operations operator.
Woo! All right, so the lies go on and on. But Malcolm Nance actually acknowledged that, I mean, here's what he actually said at the time when he was in Ukraine, and he gave an interview. I think this was to the New Yorker. I'm not sure what it was. Right now, part of my duty is to the press. They were well aware I was a high-level asset. So instead of putting me out on the front line, I'm in a safe house talking to people like you. So he acknowledges that he was never on the front line. He's in a safe house. And I was like, look, I would go looking for Malcolm Nance's activity on Twitter, thinking like James Vasquez, he'd be posting videos from the field about what a badass he was. And he didn't even do that. He was like tweeting about Trump the whole time and acknowledging that, you know, this was all fake. And
he's had a great racket going for a long time. During Russiagate, he presented himself as a national security expert. He wrote a book, I think, that even came out before the election or close to it, saying how Russia hacked the election. So he was really ahead of his time in the Russiagate.
It was like before it even happened. Like,
he did a great job.
Yeah, I looked up his service records in the Navy because he said he was this high-level Navy intelligence officer who oversaw operation rooms of 300 men. He actually said that on another Bill Maher episode.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Nance is listed as a basic Arabic analyst who was doing basic level cryptology for the Navy in the Persian Gulf. And he worked for a time as a contractor in the UAE and was positioning himself as kind of a low-level war on terror expert. And then all of a sudden, and he wrote some book about jihadists, and then all of a sudden Russiagate happened. So he's a Russia expert. He's never been to Russia, as far as I know, speaks no Russian, you know, fake. But the New York Times has now finally lifted the mask a little bit on these characters. And I think it's a signal of where the proxy war is going.